Hi, today I'll be covering the relationship between money supply growth and inflation using the quantity theory of money. To start, let's go over the quantity theory of money. It is expressed by the equation money supply times velocity. In other words, how frequently a certain amount of money is spent equals prices times real GDP. This is the static version of the equation, which captures an economy's nominal GDP at a single point in time. The version that captures growth rate of nominal GDP over a period of time is growth rate of money supply plus growth rate of velocity equals growth rate of prices plus growth rate of real GDP. The quantity theory of money states that growth rate of velocity and growth rate of real GDP are relatively constant or stable in the long run, making the equation growth rate of money supply equals growth rate of prices. This essentially means that the supply of money is the only variable that affects prices or inflation in the long run. Now let's talk about inflation. Inflation is the decline of purchasing power of money over time. For example, say the Bank of Canada decided to print an additional 25% of money and circulate it into the economy. You now have $5 in your pocket instead of $4, so 25% more money, and you want to buy some chips with it. Previously, $4 would have gotten you one bag, but now with 25% more money, you can buy 1 1/4 bags, right? Well, not quite. That same bag of chips now costs $5 as well, meaning you now pay more for the same product and amount of it. In other words, inflation has occurred due to an increase in the supply of money. This illustrates the quantity theory of money and how money supply and inflation are connected. Moving on, let's go over a real world example of how rapid money printing led to hyperinflation and the costs associated with it. For this example, we'll use Venezuela. In 2016, the Venezuelan government began rapidly printing money in order to finance spending. However, the government printed money so rapidly that it became a major contributor to hyperinflation in the country. To put into perspective how bad the inflation was at its peak, in 2018, the Central Bank of Venezuela reported an inflation rate of 130,060%. This resulted in economic costs which involved a decline in purchasing power so drastic that citizens abandoned the Venezuelan bolivar in favor of the US dollar. Moreover, Venezuela's GDP dropped 75% between 2014 and 2021, which also contributed to a shortage of basic goods as well as rising poverty.